in Denver, Colorado. Good evening and welcome to your City Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, June 15th, 2021, and it is 6 p.m. Regular meetings are held on the first and third Tuesday of each month in the council chambers at City Hall. Madam City Clerk, roll call, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Jennings?
Here.
Councilmember Raines? Here. Councilmember Sharma?
Present, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Genoway?
Present.
And Mayor Minigar.
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. This is the public communications portion of the agenda for closed session only. City Clerk Gomez, are there any requests to speak forms for closed session?
No, Mayor, there are none.
I hear none. The public communications for the closed session is now closed. At this time, I would like to ask our City Attorney, Enos, to read us into closed session, please.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council and audience. We have one item of closed session this evening. It's conference with labor negotiators. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, city designated representative is Justin Martin. The deputy city manager and the employee organization is the Orange County Employees Association. That concludes my announcement. Thank you.
Very good. We will now recess to closed session. Good evening. I would like to call our regular city council meeting back to order at 7 p.m. City Attorney Enos, is there any reportable action from the closed session?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council and audience. We had a closed session beginning at 6 p.m. It was conference with labor negotiators related to negotiation of an MOU with the Orange County Employees Association, and there is no final and reportable action at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to announce that this evening we are resuming our ceremonial items at regular city council meetings. At this time, I would like to ask Monsignor John Urell from St. Timothy Catholic Church to provide the invocation, please.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. I would like to offer a prayer of praise of God's power and providence taken from the Hebrew Scriptures from Psalm 33. Rejoice, you just in the Lord. Praise from the upright is fitting. Give thanks to the Lord on the harp, on the 10-string lyre, offer praise. Sing to God a new song. Skillfully play with joyful chant. For the Lord's word is true, and all God's works are trustworthy. The Lord loves justice and right and fills the earth with goodness. Let all the earth fear the Lord. Let all who dwell in the world show reverence. For God spoke, and it came to be. He commanded, and it stood in its place. God foils the plans of nations, and he frustrates the designs of peoples. But the plan of the Lord stands forever. Wise designs through all generations. Happy the nation whose God is the Lord, the people he has chosen as his own. And as we gather as one nation under God, we ask that the Lord bless us and keep us, and let his face shine upon us and be gracious to us, that the Lord would look upon us with kindness and grant us his peace. Amen.
Thank you, Monsignor Urell. Now I would like to ask Junior Scout Troop 4497 to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Audience attention, color guard advance. Color guard present the colors. Would the Honorable Mayor, City Council members, and audience please join in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Audience may be seated.
Thank you very much. I would like to invite all my city council colleagues to join me in the well. Thank you very much. This is always the photo op. By the way, welcome back to the City Council chambers. It's been quite some time. We miss you. Thank you very much. Would you like to introduce yourself? Which school you go to? What grade?
I'm Maddie Hughes, and I go to Niguel Hills Middle School for 6th grade.
I'm Mila Nunez, and I'm in Niguel Hills 6th grade. I'm Grace Gisnowski, and I'm going into the 6th grade at Niguel Hills.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any troop leaders here? Would you like to introduce yourself? Here you are.
I'm Michelle Grisnowski, and I'm a troop leader, and here's my co-leader.
And I'm Kate Hughes, and I'm a troop leader as well.
Thank you very much. We are ready.
Oh, you want to stay for a photo?
Absolutely. Great job. Thank you very much. You may be seated. Our first presentation this evening is a proclamation commending Mr. John Morton on his 26 years of service as a volunteer member of the Police Auxiliary Citizens Team. At this time, I would like to ask Mr. Morton to please come forward for the presentation. Pleasure meeting you.
Thank you. Likewise.
Let me read the proclamation. It's a long one. Please bear with me. You're the most qualified citizen of the city. Whereas we express our sincere appreciation to Mr. John Morton for his distinguished 26 years of service as a Police Auxiliary Citizens Team, aka PACT, volunteer with the Orange County Sheriff's Department. And whereas John has lived a life of service both to his country, to his community, and whereas John bravely enlisted in the United States Air Force in 1943 at the height of the conflict during World War II, and whereas John served as a tail gunner for the B-24 Bomber Task Force career group in the Pacific Theater, flying no less than 54 successful missions, protecting the free world until 1945. And whereas during his years of service to this country, John was awarded 7 medals, which included Air Medal, Good Conduct Medal, American Campaign Medal, Asiatic Pacific Medal, WW2 Victory Medal. We need a truck to carry all your medals. Philippines Liberation Ribbon, and the Honorable Service Lapel Button, WW2. And whereas following his years of honorable service, John has lived a rich and a full life as a husband, father, grandfather, and now a great grandfather. And whereas John is recognized for his strengths and attributes related to community engagement, integrity, professionalism, and passion for community services, and whereas John is recognized for his commitment to promoting the Orange County Sheriff's Department's mission, vision, and core values. And whereas as a PACT volunteer, John has dedicated over 13,000 hours, saving our taxpayers upwards of $250,000 while serving Laguna, Niguel, and Orange County residents. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Fred Minigar, on behalf of the Laguna Niguel City Council, do hereby commend John Morton for his exemplary years of dedicated service and commitment to the country and the city of Laguna Niguel. We extend our sincere appreciation to him for his unwavering dedication and service. Thank you so very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to ask Mr. Morton if he has any comments, then I'm going to turn it over to my city council colleagues for their comments, please.
Well, I want to recognize my son who was here with his wife and family. And I followed in his footsteps as volunteering with the Laguna Niguel Police Department because he wore the badge for the LAPD for 26 years and retired as a lieutenant. And I'm very proud of that. I think more than anything else, he was the one that gave me the desire to become a PACT member. I felt that that was the nearest I could get to police work. And I'm very proud of him, and I'm very, very honored to be introduced the way I have been. And I want to thank everybody here involved very much for the recognition. Kind of speechless, but please believe it. You have my thanks. I really hope that you realize that. Laguna Niguel is a wonderful city. And the Sheriff's Department, can't say enough of the Sheriff's Department. I really, really just enjoyed my association with them in volunteering for 26 years. I want them all to know, deputies right up there that I don't know, how proud I am of you people and the ones that have served with you and will continue serving. Thank you very much for this honor. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilmember Sandy Rains.
Well, John, we want to thank you so much. It's our honor actually to celebrate you today. We know that your history and all of your service, not just to our city, but to our country and everything that you've done, you probably have humbly done it in service with your entire heart. And it's a testament to your family as well that you stand up here today. So thank you so much for being here and allowing us to celebrate you and all your years of service. Thank you.
Councilmember Kelly Jennings.
Thank you very much. Thank you so very much from the bottom of my heart for all your service for our community. I truly appreciate it. And it's people like you who make our community so great and so connected. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Councilmember Sharma.
Well, my mind keeps spinning around the concept or the image of being a tail gunner in an airplane in the Pacific Amphitheater. What an amazing series of activities you must have been engaged in, the stories you have to tell. You're part of the great generation. I'm humbly thankful for your service to our community. Your exemplification of the volunteerism adding to the greatness of the city of Laguna Niguel, and thank you for everything you've done for us. Thank you for your service to the city and the country. Thank you.
Well, John, somehow the words thank you just don't seem to be enough. They don't adequately express the appreciation our community has for you and all that you've done. You've been such a faithful servant to the country and to Laguna Niguel, and all that you've done and the model that you have set for our younger people. I think they should look up to you and aspire to serve as well as you have, because what you have done for our city is something that is rarely done, that someone can devote so many hours and so much time and do it with such commitment. And I've seen you out there and you do it with joy, and those people who interact with you, you make it a pleasant experience. So we appreciate what you've done. And I want to thank your son for inspiring you. It's wonderful when we have our children who inspire us to do something. So thank you, sir. We appreciate your inspiration that you gave to your dad. But thank you. And I want to know, what is the thing that kept you going in PAC for 26 years? Because you have really contributed to Laguna Niguel and made it so remarkable. So why have you done it for so long? Because we need others to be inspired by you.
The main reason why I did it so long is the people that I was associated with in the city of Laguna Niguel and the Orange County Sheriff's Department. I mean, everybody, regardless of their rank, the ones that I was associated with and the way they treated me, like I was a VIP.
You are
I
a
mean,
VIP.
you are.
You are.
But that's all. It's really the people.
Okay.
I can't say enough about the people, both the city and the Sheriff's Department. That's what kept me there. And I had a tough time leaving because I just loved everybody, enjoyed the work, appreciation, and all the adventurous things that would happen. LAPD for 26 years.
So
So-
26 is the number in your family, huh?
Yeah.
If you had gone 27, sir, we might have him for another year, huh?
It's your fault, Rick.
Very good. I would like to invite Mrs. Morton and Mr. Morton, if you would like to join us.
Rick, my son, the
Yes.
only Mr. Martin.
Yes. Absolutely.
See, I get flowers.
That's for you.
It's for you. You get to take this home.
The proclamation. Thank you very much. Again, congratulations.
Have a spot on your wall? We'll make one.
Yes, you may be seated. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you. All right, our next presentation is a proclamation recognizing lupus awareness in Laguna, Niguel. At this time, I would like to ask Dr. Gila family to come forward for the presentation. How are you? Let me read the proclamation. Whereas lupus is a chronic autoimmune disease in which the immune system inexplicably and randomly attacks the body's own tissues and vital organs, including the kidneys, brain, heart, lungs, blood, skin, and joints. It is a leading cause of premature cardiovascular disease, kidney disease, and stroke among young women, and whereas lupus directly affects 1.5 million in the US, and each year, thousands of people are newly diagnosed with lupus. The majority of those diagnosed are young people in the prime of their lives, and 90% are women. Lupus disproportionately affects women of color. It is more prevalent in African Americans, Hispanics, Native Americans, and Asians than Caucasians, and whereas lupus is one of the most difficult diseases to diagnose because the symptoms come and go, mimic those of other diseases, and there is no single test that can definitely identify the illness. Yet, early diagnosis and treatment usually lessens the progression and severity of the disease and are vital to preserving health and preventing further complications, organ damage, and death. And whereas many healthcare professionals are unaware of the symptoms and health effects of lupus, causing people with lupus to suffer for many years before obtaining a correct diagnosis and medical treatment, demonstrating the need for increased public and professional awareness of lupus. Increasing public awareness and focusing public attention on lupus and its devastating impact on patients' lives will provide hope for a better future for those affected. And whereas Lupus LA works to raise awarenesses of the signs and symptoms of lupus and to promote education, research, social support, and quality medical care for our citizens who live with or care for someone who struggles with this disease. Let us recommit ourselves to supporting the research that will lead to better, targeted treatments and a cure for this devastating illness that affects so many women in the prime of their lives. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Fred Menegar, on behalf of the Laguna Niguel City Council, do hereby urge each of our residents to be aware of the signs and symptoms of lupus and to promote education, research, social support, and quality medical care for our citizens who live with or care for someone who struggles with this disease. On behalf of the city of Laguna, Niguel, and the entire city council, I would like to thank you and appreciate what you've been doing. And by the way, I forgot to introduce Dr. Gila Family is a clinical psychologist. She's a professor emeritus from Université du Montréal. My late mother taught me French. I don't know if I still remember how she taught me. I hope I said it correctly. Now the mic is yours if you have any comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, council members. I appreciate giving me the time because although there are so many people affected by lupus, yet the awareness about lupus is not as much as it should be. And Lupus LA tries very hard to advocate for the patients, for research, and so far a lot of advancements have been achieved. For the first time a few years ago, after many decades, a drug specifically for lupus was approved by the FDA. So it's really important because the disease is absolutely debilitating. You must have heard of Selena Gomez, who got a kidney transplant that was from lupus that had affected and damaged her kidneys. Kristen Johnson, who played in Third Rock from the Sun, and she was affected by lupus. Seal, if you see his face is all scarred, that's from lupus, because lupus affects everywhere. And the celebrities, Toni Braxton's heart has been damaged. So it's really important. And the younger it hits, the worse it is going to be, and the less the favorability of the prognosis. So it's better to become aware that when symptoms come and go, and there is no way of really diagnosing, this is not a flu, but it looks like a flu. This is not a cough, anything with the lung, but it goes away. And so it can be everything from having problems in your memory and thinking and rationality and losing your emotional composure. That's when the lupus is affecting the brain. So it can affect any part of the body. It can affect, for example, the skin. And if you look, it's often the back of the patient. It can look like a leper. And often people think, oh, this is acne, but it's not acne, it's lupus attacking the skin. So it can attack any part of the body. And so it's when you don't know what's going on, and when you're not happy with what the physician has diagnosed you with, saying it's nothing, you're just tired. Fatigue is the biggest thing, the biggest hallmark of lupus. And it's not, imagine the worst fatigue you have experienced in your life, multiply that by many, many, many times, and that's the fatigue that the lupus patient feels. So awareness helps the patients and the families, and it helps the economy too, because the money that goes into taking care of these patients, and so many of them become disabled, then we are helping everybody. So I am very grateful for the city of Laguna Niguel and specifically Mr. Thank you. I'd like to thank you very much because the awareness is so important. Thank you all very much, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Sandy Rains.
I want to thank you, doctor, because anyone who's been diagnosed with any type of autoimmune disease knows that the number one thing they need is advocates like you. So thank you for your work and the awareness that you bring about for this disease. And just by virtue of this disease, I know many other questions are asked as well. So thank you.
Thank you for bringing awareness to everyone. I do have a girlfriend who has lupus, so I understand firsthand how debilitating this can be. So thank you for advocating for our community. I appreciate that.
Councilmember Sharma.
Thank you. My hope with every proclamation is it becomes more than just words on paper. It encourages people to take time to look in to get a better understanding of what it is we're addressing. And this encouraged me to look into lupus more because I don't have any family or friends necessarily affected by it. But to spend a life dealing mostly with coping as opposed to treatment has got to be very challenging, psychologically, spiritually, and personally. So again, thank you. And I hope this manifests into something more than just words on paper. Thank you.
Thank you, doctor, for bringing awareness to this. One of the members of my family does have lupus, so I know it can be debilitating. And also when you have an autoimmune disease, you start out with one and then they build on each other because your body starts to break down. So for a very young woman, this is it's life-changing when she has it. So I think raising awareness, and sometimes it's the patient that needs to suggest it to the doctor because the symptoms aren't very definite and it's hard to test for. It's basically, well, you've eliminated everything else and you already have an autoimmune disease. So it's the patient being aware, the patient's family being aware, and advocating for themselves. So thank you for what you're doing to bring awareness to our community. Thank you. I'd like to hold this and we take some pictures.
Oh, thank you.
Very much. All right, that concludes our presentation. So we will now move on to public communications. Any person wishing to address the City Council will need to complete and present a gold-colored request to speak form to the City Clerk. These forms are available on the counter that is located near the door to the Council chambers. Please be aware that the time limit will be 3 minutes for each person to speak. And to allow equal time for speakers, minutes may not be given to another speaker. You may have another person read your written statement. Madam City Clerk Gomez, this is the only request to speak form that I have, and this is general, correct?
Yes, yes.
Very good. Mr. Walter Orlando.
Hello, thank you for letting me speak. Excuse my my throat. I don't know what's going on, but anyway,
Welcome.
thank you. The reason that I'm here is because I'm really concerned about the e-bike traffic on Marina Hills Drive. I live in Marina Hills Drive. I've lived there for over 20 years, but the proliferation of these e-bikes on the sidewalks, not on the bike paths where they should be or where they belong, but on the sidewalks, is not only a nuisance, a hazard, but it's a very, very serious accident waiting to happen. I walk my dogs, little dogs, twice a day. In the morning, everything's fine, but around this time, it's a madhouse over there. And as I said, there's a bike path that they should be on, and these people are doing 20, 25 miles an hour. And then the little kids, no helmets, nothing. You've got people of all ages, moms pushing strollers. And this is just an accident, a major accident waiting to happen. And I don't know if you guys are, I think Jennifer, there you are. She mentioned something that there was something on the agenda about, you guys are getting some sort of you're looking into it, I guess. But I think this should be a priority because, as I said, these e-bikes are they're a hazard, and it's an accident waiting to happen. So, well, that's all I've got to say. Thank you for listening.
Mr. Orlando, your points are well taken. Thank you very much.
Right, thanks.
Madam Gomez, do we have any other requests to speak forums?
No, Mayor, there are no
Very
others.
good. Public communications is now closed. We will now move on to our consent calendar. Items 1 through 9. Are there any items that need to be pulled by my city council colleagues to be discussed?
I would like items 6 and 9, please.
6 and 9 by Council Member Kelly Jennings.
4 and 9.
4 and 9 by Council Member Sandy Rains.
5, please.
5 by Council Member Sharma. Mayor Pro Tem.
6 and 9.
6 and 9 by Council Member Mayor Pro Tem Elaine Genoway. Do I have a motion to
I'll move the
pass?
balance.
Very good. It was moved by Council Member Sandy Rains and seconded by
Second.
Council Member Sharma. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It passes unanimously. Now we are getting to item number 4, which was pulled out by Council Member Sandy Rains. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I pulled this because it's our legislative update from our city. And I wanted to, first of all, thank Keith for the amazing job you've done. We all sit on different legislative committees in other organizations, and this is probably the most detailed and well-prepared document I've seen. So I wanted to thank you for the good work that you've done. But I also wanted to point out one of the bills in here, AB 345, which is an ADU separate conveyance. Tonight on our agenda, we're approving an ADU ordinance. And this additional legislation is now trying to divide an ADU that's built in our city that can be sold separately from the primary house. These are the types of things that are happening in Sacramento that are really imposing upon our city and the lifestyle that we're familiar with. In addition, SB 9, which our Mayor Pro Tem and Mayor hosted a event on to talk about the need of trying to eliminate single family housing, is also on this. And I really encourage everyone who can go to our website to please look at, it's going to the governor's desk. It's going to pass in the Senate. It's going to pass in the Assembly. It's going to go to the governor's desk. So we have some language in there for letters that you can write to our governor to oppose this kind of legislation, because it's just another step in moving towards removing any type of single family living that we all enjoy in this city. And I think it's very important that our residents are aware of this. This is not something that any of us support that sit up here, and we hope that our residents understand that we're fighting the best we can to stop this type of legislation. And that's all I have to say.
Any other comments?
I'll make a comment on that item. So thank you for pulling it, Councilmember Rains. The legislative efforts of our city and the advocacy that we do is very important because the bills that are passed in Sacramento, they affect our neighborhoods, our homes, our streets, our density, and so many of them are trying to take away the local control. I want to bring your attention to SB 9, which Councilmember Rains had mentioned. We had an educational workshop on that. There is a full page on our city website devoted to SB 9, showing you what would happen when this is signed into law. We have asked all of our residents to take a look at that page, and if so inclined, please contact your legislators. So this has already passed through the Senate. It is now at the Assembly. It is set for hearing in the Assembly on June 22nd, which is next week. So if we can get everybody to focus on sending letters and communicating with the Assembly, but also take it a step further and talk to all of your friends, relatives, associates, anyone you know in the state of California to contact their assembly members everywhere, because this will affect the entire state, not just Laguna and Niguel. So it is very important that our voices are heard. And I know sometimes it sounds like we're shouting and nobody's listening, but we got to keep shouting because this is so detrimental to our community. So please, before next week, send those letters. Thank you.
Any other comments? Would you like to move?
I'll move the item.
It was moved by Councilmember Sandy Rains and seconded by
Second.
Mayor Pro Tem Elaine Genoway. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, it passes unanimously. Now, moving on to item number 5, which was pulled by Councilmember Sharma.
Thank you,
Floor
Mr.
is
Mayor.
yours.
A couple questions. Maybe I can direct this at Parks and Recreation Director Ron Rivera. I appreciate the background that was provided with this. Just a few more clarification points, maybe for my edification and that of the public as well. What was the amount of the original contract? This is a second of 2 one-year extensions. Give us, if you could, maybe some understanding as to the utilization of these dollars last year and maybe the background or the commencement of the program.
Sure, absolutely. Happy to do so. So the contract, this is the second extension. We had an original 3-year contract. This is the second extension of that contract. Each year was for $99,000 plus, and that is part of the OCTA Senior Mobility Program. This is based off a Measure M tax, which provides each city a lot of dollars for senior transportation. Unfortunately, this past year during COVID, seniors weren't transporting as often due to senior center being closed and many of them not wanting to go to the grocery stores and things like that. So we had minimal expenses this year, probably under $1,000. I spoke to our finance director, Eric Hendrickson, this morning about that. But moving forward, as the senior center opens, we do expect senior transportation to move up once again with outreach program, providing the senior center being opening, providing other opportunities for seniors to transport for social activities as well as recreation and medical appointments.
Thank you.
No other comments? Would you like to move?
I'll move the item.
It was moved by Councilmember Sharma
I'll second.
and seconded by Councilmember Kelly Jennings. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it passes unanimously. Moving on to item number 6 that I believe it was pulled first by Councilmember Kelly Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. City Manager Letourneau, I have a question for you. Do other cities in Capital Unified School District also pay for the crossing guard?
Yes, they all do.
Okay, wonderful. And just for residents who may have come to know and look forward to seeing all the familiar crossing guards that they have, we submitted a request for proposals to the current crossing guard company and others, and we tried to hear back from them. We asked them on multiple occasions, and they never submitted a proper bid. So they didn't have the proper number. And if we were to receive the bid, their cost is $30,000 more if they submitted the bid properly. So I just wanted to make those points clear, and I support staff's recommendation to award the contract to American Guard Services.
Very good. Councilmember Sharma? Mayor Pro Tem Elaine Genoway. I had it marked for Councilmember Sharma.
It's okay. That's all right. As long as
The floor is 100% yours.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The reason why I pulled this, I just wanted to make our residents aware that when you see the crossing guards out there, that is an expense borne by the city of Laguna Niguel, not by the school district. So I just want to be sure our residents know where their tax dollars are going. The city pays approximately $250,000 per year for the crossing guards, and that's to keep our school children safe. So that is a city expense, not a Capistrano Unified School District expense. And also, if anyone, I know all of our residents out there go online and look at our agenda packets, but I just want to point out in one of the charts for the schools, it just lists Community Roots Academy. We know that there's another school at that campus as well, Ocasa. I did confirm with the city manager, though, that also their schedules are the same, so that that line would be applicable for both schools. So in case there are any Ocasa parents out there, yes, we are aware of your school hours. But, this is something when I first got on council, I was wondering, why isn't the school district paying for it? Because there are so many things that we pay for. We pay for the crossing guards, the maintenance of the joint fields, we have the agreements to use. There's so many things that we provide, but this is to keep our kids safe. So this is an expense that we want to be sure that our kids are safe, and I will be happy to move the item.
Okay, it was moved by Mayor Pro Tem Elaine Genoway
A second.
and seconded by Councilmember Kelly Jennings. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it passes unanimously. Now we are getting to the last item number 9, that I have 3 requests to comment on. So who would like to start? I have Councilmember Kelly Jennings, Councilmember Sandy Rains, and Mayor Pro Tem Elaine Genoway. Councilmember Kelly Jennings.
Thank you very much. So I love the Botanical Preserve, big
We all
fan.
do.
It's amazing. And very glad that we're formalizing a relationship with them, which I know is in the best interest for them and for the city as well. By this agreement, the city is committed to investing significant public funds for the maintenance and use of the Botanical Preserve. So I have reviewed the agreement and have a couple of questions. Section 15, page 6, under the insurance, I think we should consider adding a provision requiring liability waivers for our volunteers who work at the preserve, just to release liability for everyone involved. And will the Botanical Preserve have a fee schedule, much like the city has recently done for our community center for events to be held at the site? And then plaques and naming rights, because I saw under the corporate, some of the corporate levels, there's some logos. So I would suggest that, I know the city has repeatedly rejected efforts in the past about naming things. So if the council has a preference to allow corporate sponsorships that include logo placement, maybe we create a dedicated changeable monument sign in the preserve to display the sponsors' names in lieu of having signage all over. Since these are a one-time donation, it would make more sense to have a changeable sign. And so those are my questions. That's all I have.
Very good. Public Works Director, Jackie Scott by default.
Thank you, Councilmember Jennings, for your list of questions. I took notes, so if I miss one, please remind me. The Niguel Botanical Preserve maintains their ability to fundraise on their own. And so this city will not be imposing any fees, so they will be able to fundraise and charge fees as they see fit, as they currently are doing today. The plaques and signage, we are working in coordination with the Niguel Botanical Preserve. And so we've asked that if they use the city logo, that it only be for the joint events that are jointly sponsored by the two organizations. And so they'll be using their own logo on their own materials. The dedicated changeable message signs, we can discuss with the board and suggest that as an idea if they want to pursue some sort of place for that to occur in the botanical.
What about like a liability waiver? I don't know if they have that for the volunteers currently or.
I'm not aware of a liability waiver, but I can certainly discuss that with our risk management and see if we do that for other events on our city properties and talk to the board and see if they're willing to implement that on this as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to ask our city attorney, would you please chime in on that?
Yes. It is common that if a city has a volunteer program, they will often ask the volunteer to sign a waiver to engage in a particular activity. Here, if I understand the request, it would be to have volunteers to the organization itself waive their right to challenge both the city and the preserve. So that would be a request we'd have to make back to the Niguel Preserve Committee to see if they're wanting to request their volunteers to waive their rights. Right now, the agreement provides for insurance, meaning there would be insurance provided by the preserve that would cover accidents, liabilities that could occur. And so the way the risk is managed currently is through insurance. But if you'd like us to work with the preserve, we can certainly talk about an additional layer of protection through the waiver.
Just trying to mitigate risk. So if they've been handling it that way, that's fine.
We can have that conversation and we'll see where that leads.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Mayor Pro Tem Elaine Genoway.
Thank you, Mayor. My family and I have been members of the Niguel Botanical Preserve for years. And this gem in the midst of our city is not only a place of beauty, it's a spot for tranquil retreat and a botanical education site. It's also a place where, as nurtured by the community members who are the volunteer spirit of the board, that our community has a place to come together to bring out the best in each of us. Our city's youth committee members, members of the Laguna Niguel Women's Club, and local business employee groups regularly volunteer on Earth Day to clean up and plant in the preserve. The Niguel Botanical Preserve assists the Rotary Club of Laguna Niguel with the trees that Rotary gives to every third grade student in our city on Arbor Day. The preserve provides lasting recognition to the legacy of the Laguna Niguel Citizens of the Year in the Citizen Grove. Hundreds of brownies and Girl Scouts, including my daughters, Nicole and Lauren, learned life skills in the Girl Scout area and the Butterfly Garden. And the Trail to Eagle provides the opportunity for many young men in our community to develop important leadership skills. And my son Raymond built the first Eagle Scout project in the Trail to Eagle under the tutelage of Dennis Mulvaney and former Mayor Jerry McCloskey, both of whom were Niguel Botanical Preserve board members. There are currently 22 Trail to Eagle projects in the Niguel Botanical Preserve. And I share this with our public so you know the importance of this 18-acre gem in the midst of our community, its reach beyond the park perimeter, and the contributions the Niguel Botanical Preserve has made to the fabric of our community and the development of our future leaders. The preserve and the city have had an excellent relationship, and now it's the appropriate time to put the agreement in writing. I have great respect and appreciation for the Niguel Botanical Preserve Board, present and past. They are men and women who are dedicated and committed to our community, and it's important that we get this agreement right and that there's a clear understanding of the expectations. So there's 3 items that I don't see in the agreement. So I want to make sure either that they're covered somewhere or if it's something that we need to address. So I'd like to address my questions to City Attorney Ennis. And the first one, and maybe you can answer this or not, the golf cart. Who owns the golf cart? I'll take an answer from the back.
First of all, I think we do have language about
I have language about the trailer.
The trailer, correct. But in terms of the golf cart, I'll have to defer to Director Scott.
Who owns the golf cart?
The golf cart was donated some years ago to the nonprofit organization. So it currently is managed by the Niguel Botanical Reserve.
Okay, so they own the golf cart. I didn't see reference to it in here. So should
If
it
that
be
is in fact the
identified?
case, we could certainly add that to clarify, because as you indicate, having certainty and clarity on ownership of items is important.
Well, and that goes to my next question. So what about liability insurance? Because that's a moving vehicle in our public park. So with the insurance that's provided in this agreement, does that also cover
So,
a miniature automobile vehicle?
right, golf carts are defined as a vehicle under the California Vehicle Code. And because of that, my assumption is that the automobile liability insurance policy that we require would cover it. If it doesn't, it would be covered under their umbrella or under the commercial. So I would, if they own it, they operate it, I think it's a vehicle under the vehicle code, as I indicated. I think it's covered by automobile liability insurance, but if not, it's covered by the other categories. So that would be a responsibility, again, to the preserve to provide that insurance coverage.
Okay, and is that outlined in here already, or do we need to
Well,
add that language?
Again, we do require automobile liability insurance, and we will confirm that that would cover vehicles beyond just a combustion engine vehicle or other vehicle, and then ensure that it is covered otherwise under the other categories. So yes, we can make sure any insurance policy that is provided is subject to review and approval by the city attorney. So I will make sure that the policy covers that vehicle.
Okay, thank you. And do we need to add language to this agreement that identifies the ownership?
Yes, I
of
would
the golf
recommend
cart?
that if this is an identified piece of equipment or vehicle, clarity on ownership is always important in this type of agreement. So I'd recommend we include that.
Okay, and when we approve the agreement tonight, do we need specific language?
I think you could give direction for us to
Direction,
insert
okay.
language in an appropriate place with respect to acknowledging the ownership of that golf cart. My sense would it likely be where we talk in section 2C, where we already speak to the ownership of the trailer and other things. So I would recommend we add a sentence to section 2C to acknowledge the ownership of the golf cart by the MBP. And then again, as I said, with respect to the insurance, it'll be subject to my review and approval, and I'll make sure it's covered.
Okay, thank you. My next question, and I had this answered today by the city manager, but I will bring it up because I know people have worked for many years on the development of Crown Valley Community Center. And when we were planning the community center, one of the things that was talked about quite frequently was that it would be a market, a wedding venue, and we could market it, and it would, because we need that building to generate rent or lease revenue. So, and one of the things that had been talked about was using the labyrinth if the bridal party wanted to take pictures. And that is something that I did not see it in here. There was no mention of the use of the labyrinth for when we are doing our wedding packages or leasing out the Crown Valley Community Center. My understanding, though, from the city manager is that that is already being done with the Parks and Recreation Department, and they are able to work that out. So I just want to confirm with City Attorney Ennis that we don't need to include specific language to allow that to continue.
That is correct. That would be something subject to the Parks and Rec Department review and approval under their current policies.
Okay, thank you. And then my last item, and it's specifically regarding the brochure. We saw the new brochure. It looks beautiful. One of the sponsorship levels, though, was a donation of $25,000 as a project donation. My concern is that we don't want to give any false impression that someone can donate $25,000 and then say, I want this project. That the acceptance of funds does not commit the Botanical Preserve nor the city to any project. So that if there's a donor who is going to be donating money, I mean, that is something that, yes, we would like the Botanical Preserve to get that, but we don't want the donation of money to commit anyone or anyone to have the impression that it commits the city or the Botanical Preserve to a particular project.
Right. The agreement currently provides that capital improvement projects are to be subject to the city's plan, design, and approval. So to the extent that was a capital improvement project, it would be subject to our review, the city's review and approval. In terms of communicating back to the preserve that clarification needs to be provided in their communication, certainly we can communicate that to them to make that clear.
We can
Okay.
ask that they add it to the website as well, under the donations to make
Okay.
that clear also.
Yeah, I think we just want to have a clear message so that when donors donate, they're happy and they know what the funds are going for. And many times we already have a project approved and then the donation is made. But I just want to make sure that it isn't done in the reverse, because that could cause some ill feelings between the Botanical Preserve, the city, and the donor. And as I said, it's important that we keep our good relationship and that we get this agreement right. I had a place where I thought the wording would go, but and let me tell you what it is, but you're the city attorney. I was looking on page, page 3 under item 9A, and then added 2, the acceptance of funds does not commit the Niguel Botanic Preserve nor the city to any project. And that's under the fundraising section.
I think that's clear, and I would agree that's an appropriate place. It's under fundraising. So it seems like creating a new subsection 2, acceptance of funds. And again, your actual wording was
Acceptance of funds does not commit the NPB nor the city to any project.
and the word project, you want that to be a capital project or just leave it general?
I think we should leave it general. So, I mean, we're assuming it would be a capital project, but we want this to stand the test of time. We
Sure.
don't want to have to come
Right.
back and make any
Okay,
changes.
I think that's workable. And again, we'll have to get the concurrence of the preserve to that change.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you. That's all my questions, but I would just, ask the mayor that when a motion is made to approve this, that we add the, giving the city attorney direction to add the golf cart.
Before we proceed, obviously, I wanted to hear my colleagues' comments, Councilmember Sandy Raines, and then I wanted to open it for public comments because I wanted to invite the president of Botanical Preserve, President Mr. Monty McDevitt, to provide us with some feedback and some other information, and then we are going to make our final deliberation on what to be included and not to be included, as long as everything's going to be acceptable, by both parties. So with that, Councilmember Sandy Raines.
Thank you, Mayor Minigar. This is a very exciting time for us because the preserve has been part of our city for a very, very long time. And this agreement, really what it does is it helps us look at the long-term projects that we need to provide for the maintenance and upkeep and expansion of the preserve, while allowing the nonprofit, the Botanical Preserve nonprofit, to be able to accept the donations for that. So when Mayor Minigar and I sat down with staff and also with Monty, McDivitt, the president of the organization, we had some clear direction on some things. So I want to kind of answer some questions, especially for Mayor Pro Tem Genoway. One of the items that we discussed about the donations was the Preserve had actually provided a wish list in conjunction with our Public Works Director. So instead of the language saying a project, I think it might be best to direct it to a one-time donation for a project on the wish list, something to the effect that they actually list the CIP projects, because there was a list of CIP projects, right, Director Scott?
Yes, so after our initial meeting, I met with Monty McDivitt out at the preserve. We did walk the preserve and discussed a list of projects that they had a desire to see come to fruition at some point in the future. I do have that list.
Okay, and so I would think that if we actually had the list there and it kind of had somewhat of a ballpark cost for that project, it would be very specific, so people knew that they were donating specifically to a project that was needed, and that there wouldn't be any conflict with exactly what you said, Mayor Pro Tem, that they weren't trying to create their own project, that it was projects that the preserve and the city both agreed were necessary projects to be done. Is there a way that we can craft the language so that it actually clarifies that, so people understand if they're making a one-time donation, they're making it for a project that is on the wish list from the preserve?
Okay, I think you could say that, I'm just thinking out loud, that you could have the provision provide that NBP shall not accept donations for a project unless it is approved by MBP and the city and on MBP's list of intended projects.
Yeah, I think something like that, because then they're always going to have new projects and they can update the list in conjunction when they're working with the Public Works Director. So there can always be an updated list of what needs, I mean, I'm sure that they have wish lists beyond the main wish list that they gave us the first time. So once those were completed, then they could move on to it. That way it goes into, there's more clarity as opposed to just keeping it as a broad statement.
Right. And it sounds like, if I understood the two concepts here, the city has an interest in ensuring that a donor doesn't, in essence, come up with their own project without NBP and city concurrence. And so the language that was previously recommended, acceptance of funds does not commit NBP or city to any project. But what I think you're looking to is to ensure that if the money is accepted, it's to be for a project on a approved MBP capital improvement project list.
Yes.
Okay.
That's ideally, that's, I think.
That then they would kind of drive the list of projects, offer those to potential donors.
Correct.
Instead of,
Yeah, and I mean, that was really what was envisioned in our meeting, was that it would be a list of the real projects that NBP as well as the city were in agreement with. So I think it would be best if we did that. So did you want to say something else?
Well, I
Yeah.
just have a question about the prioritization of projects. So I'm just wondering, if there's a list of projects, then does it matter in what order that they're done? Or,
Jackie can answer.
I mean, that's,
So for our initial walk in the Niguel Botanical Preserve, we identified 4 separate projects. They are independent of one another, so the matter of priority would be determined by the 2 organizations.
okay, so the priority would be determined by the city and the Niguel Botanical Preserve.
Yeah.
I understand that. I just want to make sure that it's the city and the Niguel Botanical Preserve that's deciding that, without a donor thinking, I can just pick this one, where the city or Botanical Preserve wanted a different one, prioritized it.
I think they would.
I'm wondering, how do you work through that if you're going to just say from the wish list?
So let's say somebody wanted to give money for A, but or let's say they wanted to give money for C, but A was the priority, we would complete A first and then C would happen if that was the case. That would be our choice to decide. But the money could be sitting in the nonprofit ready for that project when the time came for it. So the money, it would just be building a reserve for whatever projects. And as the time came, they'd have the money to go ahead and start the project. They wouldn't have to wait to get another donor for that next project.
So then the prioritization would remain as determined by the city and the Niguel Botanical Preserve and not determined by the donor.
Correct, always.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then I guess
Any other comments?
I do have another one on the, I know that Councilmember Jennings had some concerns about liability. And if I had asked you some of these questions, Attorney Ennis earlier, but one of the things was, and the city is also an additional insured on all the policies that are required for the preserve. So the preserve is required to have policy and also include us as an additional insured. So that really helps to indemnify us. And there is language in here that indemnifies the city from any liability caused by the preserve. Is that not correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so I think that would probably cover the concern that Councilmember Jennings had, or would it not?
It would cover the city's interest. We
Mhm.
require insurance. We require them to indemnify us.
Okay.
I would just say if we were to require their volunteers to waive any potential liability, that could affect the willingness of or the pool of volunteers that may or may not want to participate in their programs. I think that's an issue that they might want to balance, because certainly it would be more protective of the interests of the preserve in reducing liability. On the other hand, it could have some unintended consequences. So that could be probably an issue for them to think about. But in terms of protecting us, I think with required insurance, with indemnification, if the volunteer is injured because of activities that they're engaged in, I think we're going to be protected. So I think
And
it's
there's-
really now up to the preserve to decide that.
And
waiver.
then there's also another one that says the city reserves the right to pick up insurance if they ever see a lapse in coverage as well, right? So we would keep track of that as well.
That is correct.
Okay, so I don't know if that, I hopefully that would take care of that. The other interesting thing that came up was the golf cart. That's like how they do the tours, but if there were to be another golf cart donated or whatever, instead of just identifying just one vehicle, maybe could we have more broad language that says any vehicles used by the Niguel Botanical Preserve, that they're required to have insurance? Because I hate to have to update this all the time if we can cover it with some broader language.
Certainly. And I think because it'll be subject to the satisfaction of the city attorney in terms of the coverage, we will make sure that if there's 1, 2, 3, 5 vehicles, all of them are covered. Yes, it's not limited to just covering the existing golf cart.
Perfect. I think I am done for now. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. I just wanted to open the public comments just for Mr. Monty McDevitt to come forward for any kind of feedback and some global observation with regard to collaboration and cooperation between NBP and the city of Laguna Niguel for that jewel that we have, the secret jewel in our beautiful city.
Sure. Thank you very much, Mayor. A couple of things.
Please identify yourself.
I'm Monty McDivitt. I'm president of Niguel Botanical Preserve. Been president for the last 10 years. So I wanted to just address a couple of concerns as far as liability waivers. All of our volunteers are required to sign a new liability waiver on their first calendar day of service in the preserve. We sign a new one every year, as well as people who ride in the golf cart, give tours to. They are required to sign the same liability waiver. So that's currently being done. I was told that all of our vehicles, and we actually have more than one, we actually have 3. Only one is offered, is driven by volunteers and given tours, and that's of course the golf cart. We actually have 2 other vehicles that are garden vehicles, maintenance vehicles, and they are all insured under the same insurance policy that currently meets the current guidelines in Section 15. So I wanted to assure you that as well. What I'm a little concerned about is the talk here about our capital improvement projects. And this was the board's concern about the MOU. The board was concerned with the city coming in and trying to take over management of the preserve. And I don't think that's your intention, but we want to prioritize our own capital improvement projects. They all are vastly different with vastly different cost estimates. And we have ballpark cost estimates. We don't have anything in writing yet. But we just because we want one done before doesn't mean we can't get the capital improvement project D done if we have a volunteer for that. If they feel emotionally attached to one project but not another, I don't know why we can't fulfill that project. And I would hope that that would be the board's decision and not the city's decision. Of course, the city would need to sign off on any big capital improvement project, and we want you guys to do that. We've done that before. We put in the gazebo up top and got our building permits and went through every piece of authorization we needed to from the city. So I think Jackie Scott's predecessor was heavily involved in that, as well as the permit desk down on the first floor. So we are abiding by all these rules already, and I actually do like some of the recommendations that you guys talked about. Making sure that the vehicles are in here are actually mentioned, and maybe any future vehicles as well. I'm all in support of that. But what I'd like to kind of put more thought into is how much decision making the city council or the city will have in the prioritization of capital improvement projects. So that's a concern of mine.
So Monty, I believe that the wish list that you brought to us was when I'm talking, that is actually my desire when we talked. And I know when Mayor Minigar and I met with you, that was the desire, was that you would bring us the projects and give us the direction, and then we would just be the approving body because of the MOU, but we wouldn't be driving it unless, of course, it was something of a safety issue that our public works director, and that most likely would be something the city would pay for anyhow. But like the improvement projects, I think would be mostly directed by the preserve. That was our understanding, and I'm hoping that that's still how it's going to stay. I think the big concern was that we didn't have a donor who was trying to run a project.
Oh, I can appreciate that as well. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's correct. I believe that the project should be driven, the selection of projects should be driven by the Niguel Botanical Preserve, and I want to preserve that in the document and not have the selection of projects driven by the donors.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Any other questions?
Before you leave,
Yes.
let me ask our city attorney, we are okay now with that specific language with regard to the way all these projects are going to be listed, prioritized between the two entities? Even though it's MOU, we know that.
Yeah, let me see if I can understand the consensus. Is it that NBP shall not accept contributions for capital projects unless the project is on an approved capital improvement list of MBP? And then with respect to the city's involvement, the city isn't going to approve the list, right? It would just be if the capital project requires a building permit, the city would approve that. The project would have to come to the city for that approval. So are you wanting the city to have independent approval of the prioritization on the list, or just it's got to be approved by the city because it requires a permit? I guess is my question.
I think it's got to be approved by the city if it requires a permit, but if it's on the list, it's MBP's direction on the projects that are donated money to. Anything that would not be a donated project, there's a couple things, and Jackie, maybe you can talk to this, like there's a couple projects that the city would be responsible for. That would be the city's responsibility, and she would collaborate with NBP, but it would be something we would be paying out of our general fund, not out of the NBP funds that are donated.
So in terms of coordinating the actual implementation of a project, the Botanical Preserve Park is owned by the city, so it is subject to prevailing wage laws and the other public contracting codes that we're required to abide by. So to actually implement a construction project, we would need to schedule that in coordination with the other projects that are approved in our CIP for proper design and oversight to complete the work.
Okay, I understand that. So but that's for things that we would be paying for if we needed to do something. The rest would be driven all by NBP, right?
The Niguel Botanical Preserve is also subject to prevailing wage, but they have a different requirement for how they procure their services.
Okay. I still think you guys get the choice. And thank you for clarifying that if Project D was someone that donated, you would be happy to do Project D and wait till somebody came around for Project A, right? I don't
Right,
think you had anything prioritized where one had to happen before the other one did.
You are right, Councilman Raines. We actually, the more urgent requests we had were all city project paid for projects. And I've been working very closely with Jackie Scott and her team to make that happen.
Very good. Are we clear, Mr. City Attorney?
I believe the language that you're wanting to insert is, again, that MBP shall not accept contributions for capital projects unless the project is on an approved capital improvement list of MBP, and any required city permits are obtained by the city.
Does that sound good to you, Monty?
It does. Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions from my colleagues? Very good. We thank you very much, and you're doing an excellent job for the city. Thank you.
Mayor. Thanks, City Council. Thank you.
Very good. All right. So,
Do you have anything else?
no, I don't. I don't.
So I'll move the item then, unless anybody else. Okay, I'll move the item with the two amendments.
Right.
The one for
So
the
two amendments
liability
would
for
be
the vehicles
recognizing the golf course,
and then
golf cart, and
yes.
any other vehicles.
Yeah,
Right.
and the donor requirements.
And the donor requirement that I've read, and I will review the insurance to confirm what has been indicated, that all the vehicles are covered.
Thank you.
Very good. And I second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It passes unanimously. Very good. That concludes our consent calendar items. Now we're moving on to the first discussion item, item number 1. Let's see.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. During the City Council meeting held on March 16th, staff presented the City Council with a plan to engage with the homeowners associations in the city. This included a draft survey as well as proposed action steps for engagement. At the meeting, staff was provided with direction to move forward with surveying the homeowners associations in the city regarding overall interest in participating in opportunities for engagement, such as educational workshops and seminars, roundtable discussions, etc. The survey's intention was to provide the city with an understanding of HOA needs, issues, topics, as well as understand potential HOA participation in any events, roundtable discussions, or group-style meetings. Staff contacted all Laguna Niguel Homeowners Association representatives via email regarding the city's HOA survey. Feedback was welcome from both management company representatives and resident board members. All HOAs were informed that the survey could be completed electronically or in a hard copy format. The electronic link to the survey was provided within the email, and the HOA representatives were asked to complete the electronic survey before 5 p.m. on Friday, April 30th. Additionally, a hard copy survey and a stamped returned envelope were mailed to all of the HOAs. Hard copy survey responses were accepted for an additional 7-day period until May 7th to accommodate for the mailing process. The city received 27 responses, of which 21 were completed electronically and 6 were completed in hard copy format. The final survey that was distributed consisted of 16 questions that were based upon City Council feedback. The survey can be seen on the screen as well as an attachment to your staff report. The compiled responses to the survey are as follows. First, 81.48% of participants believe it is very important to maintain the existing level of city landscape maintenance and preservation to their community. Next, 66.67% of participants believe potential municipal code violations may be a concern in their community. Responses for this question include examples such as parking issues, landscape and debris accumulation, abandoned vehicles and excessive vehicle noise, leash laws, trail maintenance, traffic, and short-term rentals. Next, 74.07% of participants shared that they have not experienced COVID-19 related impacts to their community. Submitted responses that did include impacts include board meetings being held virtually, as well as how facilities and pools were utilized during the pandemic. 74.07% of participants stated that they have not experienced issues with general city maintenance. Those that answered yes included examples such as sidewalks, streets, water runoff, and graffiti. For question 5, 66.67% of participants stated that they would like to receive information from the city relative to water quality standards. Next, 51.85% of participants stated that they do not believe it would be beneficial to their HOA if the city shared a list of its approved contractors. However, for those that did think it would be beneficial, they referenced landscaping, street paving, painting, street maintenance, and concrete as the vendors that they would prefer. Question 7 asked about primary concerns. The items that were included are landscape maintenance, safety and security, fire prevention, water conservation, parking, short-term rentals, street maintenance, water runoff, trespassing, graffiti, speeding, and property boundaries. The next question asked if the city were to host an educational and informative workshop or seminar, what would the top 3 topic areas be? And those top 3 responses were landscaping and planting, wildfire mitigation, and city permit requirements. In regards to meeting in an organized fashion, 33.33% of participants selected to meet biannually as the preferred frequency of a potential city organized HOA meeting or workshop, followed by 25.93% of participants preferring to receive a quarterly newsletter rather than attending an actual meeting or workshop. 74.07% of participants stated that they would be interested in participating in HOA roundtable discussions hosted by the city. The responders were split on a preference for meeting group size, with 40.74% of participants preferring to meet as community-wide HOA groups, while the same amount responded that they would prefer to meet with HOAs that are similar in size. Further, 92.59% of participants believe it would be beneficial and helpful if the city provided them with a designated contact point at City Hall. And finally, 96.3% of participants prefer to receive project updates from the city via email, as opposed to hard copy mail. The survey results indicate that HOA representatives are interested in receiving information from the city in order to further enhance communication and to have a stronger understanding about HOA-related topics. The results illustrate that the responsive HOA representatives would be interested in participating in city-hosted workshops, meetings, and discussions on a biannual or annual basis, and that they have particular interest in covering the topics of landscaping and planting, wildfire mitigation, and city permit requirements. Lastly, the results show that HOA representatives believe it would be beneficial if the city provided a designated point of contact at City Hall and provided project updates via email. Given these survey results, staff recommends the following actions. The first, to delegate a community development staff member as the Homeowners Association point of contact at City Hall and share this information with HOA representatives, as well as post the contact information on the city's website. The second is to host biannual HOA meeting workshops to discuss various topics identified in the survey, while also including the ability for a roundtable discussion period. And finally, to produce an e-newsletter for the HOAs on either a biannual or quarterly basis. The E-newsletter would also include project updates as well as the designated city contact information. With this information, I conclude my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Thank you very much, Justin, for your comprehensive and complete presentation. I've sat down with you and everyone else to discuss this, so I don't have any questions. I wanted to ask my colleagues, open it for discussions. Councilmember Sharma?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of my claims to infamy, if you will, is I've been on my board now for 13 years. As I've mentioned in the past, it's a high-paying job, but the challenge that we have as HOA presidents, of which I am right now, is we are representing a community of constituents that are often the recipients of legislation that comes out of either Sacramento that we then have to pass on to our residents, and there's little, if any, understanding as to what the application or origination of those rules and regulations are. So the city just looks like a big bad, gorilla beating down the little homeowners. But I think from my experience and my exposure, having the understanding of where, as a president, having the understanding of where these bills are coming from or these responsibilities or these regulations would have been helpful on many occasions. In addition to that, we have the voice of the immediacy of our residents. So we have a very clear understanding of what our neighbors are wanting to see in our community, what's troubling them, even if they're maybe not as vocal as some of the other residents or community. And I would ask a couple things. I'm fully in favor of this. I want to thank Councilmember Raines for having originated this idea. There are a couple things that I want to point out. One, as a president, I didn't receive this letter. So the first question I have is, where were the letters sent? And was there a clear indication of the fact that it needed to get disseminated to the presidents at some point, so for feedback? Maybe we can start with that.
Sure, Councilmember Sharma. So the city's list that we maintain includes the direct emails of all the property or the property management representatives who have been designated as the lead contact. That's what we've traditionally kept as our point of contact information, and that's where the survey was sent to. Attachment A to your staff report, I'll open mine as well. Makes reference in the intro to the survey that we are accepting feedback from HOA representatives that include board members or property managers. So, and we did receive responses from both of those types of groups.
Okay, thank you. When it comes to meetings, are there representatives specifically designated from the council that will be present at these meetings, or is it mainly a quorum of homeowner presidents and representatives?
Sure. The intent as presented is for these to be staff-led, and the recommendations do not designate a city council member. Certainly, a council member can be present if that's what they so wish. I do believe in the past that council members had been present at similar things, but these recommendations do not necessarily include a designated council representative for these biannual meetings.
I think maybe that's something we might want to consider as well as part of our conversation here. So I'll pass at this point. Thank you.
I may interject right now for the last question. Well, it has to be one of the standing committees or ad hoc committees of the city, and officially, as you well know, we don't have that. And typically, I believe we do it either December or in January. So then he has to come back to the city council for establishing that. And I don't think this is the proper venue at this juncture to talk about that.
The city council can establish an ad hoc committee at any time.
Right, ad hoc, it doesn't have a.
Anytime it doesn't have, but yet you
Right.
are correct. Once a year, the mayor makes recommendations to the council on our already designated ad hoc committees. But if there's any point in time that you want to remove an ad hoc committee or add a new ad hoc committee, as long as it's brought to an open meeting and you authorize that, then you can designate.
So to clarify that, at this juncture, we are not deciding on that, to have that kind of ad hoc committee or not. We're just talking about, the content of the way the survey was performed and the way the staff is recommending for those 3 specific items that if we are in favor of.
I agree. And this was more of a comment for future direction.
Sure.
Thank you.
Your points are well taken. Mayor Pro Tem Elaine Genoway, I'll go this way. I surprise you.
You keep switching it up, Mayor. Okay. So, well, thank you, staff, for working on this. I know that it was a long time coming, and it is something that I know the mayor and I had input as far as the questions and the refinement of that. And I think that this is a very good idea. The city has communicated over the years with the HOAs, but this recommendation from staff, it provides more collaborative approach to address potential issues and also provides the opportunity for the HOA boards to communicate with each other as well as with the city and not feel as if they're operating in a silo. So we need to think about what is the purpose of this this group, this association. It's educational. It's to provide them information. It's not a policy-making group as maybe our traffic commission is or our planning commission. This is for us to provide information to the homeowner associations. As Councilman Sharma mentioned, sometimes there's legislation that comes down and the HOAs need help in interpreting that and how does it apply to them. So this is more of an informational group. And it is patterned after our shopping center working group, and that has been a very successful format that we've had. A 21% response rate is good for a survey, but I am disappointed to see a low rate for a very targeted survey and going to a very targeted group. And it was sent to specifically those who are responsible for the HOA actions and management. At least half of the survey respondents were the management company, which may have been at the direction of the board, or it may not have been. They may not have received it, but this does not change the appropriateness of staff's recommendation. And as time goes on and hopefully participation increases, we need to be open to a shift in frequency and topics and input that more people may have. So I have 3 comments on the staff recommendations. And the first one is that the designation of a specific community development staff member as the point of contact for the HOAs, that is in keeping with our concierge level of service that we strive for as a city. So I really like that recommendation, and that's something we brought up early on. And this open and proactive communication channel will allow for both the HOA and the city to get out in front of issues before they become a problem. And a significant benefit of this development of two-way communication is that it's providing communication into the city rather than all of the communication being outbound. So, and it's very important that we listen and that we hear what the HOAs have to say. And the fact that over 92% of the respondents found this to be beneficial really highlights the need for it and for prioritizing an HOA designated point of contact in our ComDev department. And then secondly, based on the survey responses received, I concur with staff's recommendation of the twice yearly workshop. Based on the topics requested, ComDev should coordinate with Public Works on their H2O for HOAs educational events. That's been a successful event, and we had the template for it, so to speak. So in having the roundtable discussions at the conclusion of the workshop, provide the opportunity for those who would like to have a discussion, they can stay, and if they don't want the discussion, they can go. So, but it fits everyone's need. And in the recommendation, you were talking about the frequency of the newsletter, and I would opt for a quarterly publication. And the benefit of an e-newsletter is that it can be any length. It can be 1 page, it can be 10. We're not printing, we're not mailing. The soft cost is the staff time. But 2 newsletters can be sent out immediately after the biannual workshop to capture the information that was covered for those who couldn't attend, and the 2 remaining newsletters can catch up on anything that needs to happen before the next workshop. And also, depending on when an HOA holds their election, if an e-newsletter is sent out only twice a year, it may be 6 months before that new board hears from the city. So quarterly, we'll be able to maintain a communication flow. A couple of points that need to be kept top of mind is that HOA board members are volunteers, and they devote a great deal of time to their community. And the time that they are able to participate in additional meetings, workshops, roundtable discussions, may be limited. So this group needs to really create value and provide information and benefit so that the HOA board members can leverage their time. And so staff needs to continually monitor, as I know you will do, but to continually monitor and adjust as needed. So, and also, and to bring up Councilman Sharma's point, all communication should be with both the HOA board and the HOA management company. If there is an HOA that we have only the contact info for the management company, the board contact should be requested from them. The management company may have the subject area expertise and they execute the day-to-day activities of the HOA, but it is the HOA board that represents the residents of Laguna Niguel and is the HOA board that is the employer of the management company. So I really would hope that an effort would be made to find out who those contacts are, and it's okay to be sending to both of them, and we should be sending to both of them. So I appreciate all the work that has gone into this. I think it's an excellent recommendation, and I do support all of the recommendations contained in this report. Thank you.
Councilmember Sandy Rains.
Thank you so much. And thank you for putting this together. I know that you took our direction from the last time and added additional questions, and I appreciate that. I'm going to echo my colleagues' concerns at this time that it was interesting that we had very few presidents that actually responded to this. I did review the letter, and it did encourage either the management companies or the presidents, but it wasn't as specific as it could have been to really engage and encourage them to send it to the presidents. I think that could have maybe helped us with that. But even with that being said, we did get some responses that I think if we had a broader list of the presidents where they would probably give us similar feedback, I'm sure we would probably hear that. I've had about 12 different HOA presidents who have reached out to me, and they had not received the survey from their management company. So this is there's several management companies in our cities that one in particular that actually has 3 of these HOAs, and none of those presidents from those HOAs received it. So it could have been specific to a management company just not responding. That is not something our staff can control. So I do think that in the future, this is a great starting point for us. And I think for our first meeting that is scheduled, that we should work on improving the database, reaching out to the management companies, making sure that we do get the president's contact information so that they do get a personal invitation. And then maybe at that time, they can also respond to this questionnaire, because if they haven't seen it, they don't even know what we're offering them. And that might lead the direction of this group to maybe change at that time as well, and provide them with other things more than just what we see here today. One of the different, and I got several emails from different presidents, but one of them did ask that there was an HOA working group to meet with a city council advisory capacity. So I don't know what that would look like. Maybe it wasn't, maybe it would just be a rotating council member that would show up to the meeting so that there was someone there that they felt that they still had that contact to their council as well. If we want to do an ad hoc committee later, we could consider that, but that was one of the requests. And in this survey that we sent out, I know that public safety was one of the big items, and neighborhood watch updates was another one that I got from a lot of the feedback that I had heard. So I think that that could be something, because that is one of our priorities. It's in our strategic plan. We've heard it over and over and over. That might not be and there's lists of other things that they were concerned about that also relate to public safety. So I'd like to see maybe that be maybe our first priority, and that could engage more of our presidents to show up to that first event. With that, I don't think I have any other questions. Those are just my comments, and thank you for your work on this.
Very good. Last but certainly not least, Councilmember Kelly Jennings.
Thank you very much. So I'm very pleased with the city's efforts to reach out to our HOAs. I know it's a daunting task. My previous life, I dealt with all of our HOAs and most of them didn't really care or had the less is more approach. So it is always challenging trying to get information disseminated to the board members from the managing partners. So I understand the challenges that go attached to this, and the volunteers for HOA, their lives are busy too, so they don't always get all the information. But I really appreciate the information that we received back, really good points on the survey, ways we can connect with them. It is also disappointing that we only received 7 HOAs supported biannual meetings and 5 HOAs wanted quarterly meetings compared to the 96% who requested just to be informed by email. So again, kind of the hands-off approach, which is kind of discouraging. But a few things maybe the city doesn't need to get involved with right away, like water and landscaping and planting, because our local water agency hosts monthly landscaping classes in English and in Spanish and have an annual water event specifically just for HOAs. So maybe something we could partner with them on just to connect. Other responses, it seems clear that they would rather meet regarding specific issues like projects and issues that arise that are specific towards them. And I know that in the past when HOAs reach out to us that our city is very responsive to any needs that they have, and we haven't had any issues. And I recommend that all council members attend the HOA meetings once we have them. It doesn't need to be an ad hoc, and I think we all should be present just to show the community that we're there and we're here for them. So I am in support of designating a community development team member as HOA point of contact and holding a meeting this fall where we can begin to gauge interest in or benefit of future meetings. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. I think to recap, I appreciate Justin for providing us with additional information because that solidified my final, decision with regard to the 3 specific recommendations that you're making for this body to approve tonight. So with that, do I have a motion to approve what has been presented by the city staff?
I'll make a motion that we approve.
I'll
what's
second.
been presented.
Okay, it was moved by Councilmember Sandy Rains and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Elaine Genoway. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, it passes unanimously. That concludes our only discussion item. Now we move on to council reports and then later city manager reports. So I wanted to start off with Councilmember Kelly Jennings.
Thank you very much. So there's been a lot of news about cities continuing to allow restaurants outdoor seating, areas that were previously not designated as outdoor seating. It was even brought up this morning at the chamber breakfast. So back in May 2020, the city of Laguna, Niguel was one of the first cities to allow portions of the parking area in shopping centers to accommodate outdoor dining opportunities for restaurants with temporary use permits and waive the temporary use permit filing fee so restaurants can continue to serve our community during this pandemic. Now that the pandemic is over, I know that the city is continuing the outdoor seating at no cost to the restaurants. So just continuing our pro-business thing. And I know other cities are charging additional dollars for that, and our city is not. And it was so wonderful to be with our baby goats at the goats meet and greet over the last weekend. And last Saturday, we had our Surf's Up Schools Out drive-through event. That was so fun and great to see many of our residents and our little kiddos. Great job setting it up, and the ice cream was a hit. So well done on that. And finally, after all that has become before us, we are finding a way to come back to business as usual. We know that it's a challenging time for everyone, and we all have different opinions. But as I said many times in the past, together we got this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Sandy Rains.
Thank you, Mayor Minigar. Really had a great time with the goats. We really did. It was fun to see all the family members and different people come out to that. I wanted to thank the Turkish ambassador. I was invited to meet him and represent our city last week, and it was fascinating to see how the ambassadors work for the good of our countries and how they're working on commerce and how to do business with each other. There were some of our residents from Laguna Niguel that were also there, so it was a pleasure to meet him and also to be able to represent our city at that event. There is this Thursday our first senior social. I guess it's ice cream. Too bad I'm not a senior, but I might crash it anyhow because ice cream is my favorite. And it's at our community center at 1 o'clock. And on June 26th, backed by popular demand, our shred event is finally here. It will be at a different location at the Sea Country Center, but please put your stuff that needs to be shred that you've been probably saving up for a year now and bring it along to be shred. And like I said, it is a drive-through event, right? So thank you for that. And thank you for allowing me to serve you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sharma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sandy's visiting Turkish ambassadors, and I'm over here meeting with mosquito experts. Something's like wrong with this. We had another mosquito meeting last week, and the city is actively participating in mosquito abatement programs sponsored by the OC Vector. Please take some time to visit our city website and pull some additional information on there as to how you can help mitigate some of the disease-borne transmitters of all kinds of badness. And I hate the sound that they make at night too when you're just by yourself. Want to congratulate all of our graduates. Attended several graduation ceremonies over the last couple of weeks. Just remember, you can't go back now, but make the most of your future. It's all in front of you, and it does tend to go fast. Finally, summer's out drive-through event. Thank you to Ron Rivera and the entire Parks and Recreation Department for all the work you put into that. It was great fun, a lot of very enjoyable day, and beautiful weather too. So thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Elaine Genoway.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so this council chambers, this is the People's House in Laguna Niguel, and it was wonderful to see people actually out there sitting in the seats tonight. So see you participating in local government, and you're participating even if you're just here and listening and learning about what your city is doing. And it was very special to have Monsignor Urel and Girl Scout Troop 4497 to open our meeting tonight. We haven't had that in a long time. And it was just wonderful to see the youth here learning about civics and opening our council meeting. So all of us attended the high school graduations for both Aliso Niguel and Dana Hills High. Wish the graduates the very, very best. But as you go off to college, please be sure to come back and visit us. And everyone will enjoy their summer vacation even more by signing up for the Orange County Public Library Summer Reading Challenge. And you could be the lucky winner because there's prizes. So be sure to go to ocpl.org to sign up. I went to a lot of the events they talked about, but I won't talk about them. So we'll just move on down this list. And this morning's Chamber of Commerce meeting, Supervisor Lisa Bartlett was the speaker, and she talked about the reopening and what we can expect. So just stay in tune with the city website. We put all the information on there. And I know for businesses, businesses would like a little more clarity. So in 2 days, the California Public Health Department and Cal OSHA are going to get together on their message. They're supposed to be doing that and provide a little more clarity for businesses. But please reach out to the city or check out the city website if you have any questions. So today, June 15th, is the day that we've been waiting for over 15 months. Thank you to our residents for following the protocols for a healthy community. And thank you to our staff for pivoting on a dime more than once, many more times than once, to ensure that the needs of our residents and city were still met, for keeping the city fully functional, providing assistance to our business community, and for reimagining the delivery of services and programs. As all of us fully re-engage to our pre-COVID level, I ask that you keep in mind those who may not be ready to because of health concerns or the stress of isolation and not knowing how to come back and fully re-engage. Please reach out to them, offer a helping hand, a friendly voice, and if needed, the encouragement to reconnect when appropriate. We have many exciting things coming up in Laguna Niguel. We have many 4th of July festivities that will begin on June 26th. So check the city website. And the shred event that Councilmember Rains had mentioned, it's not only to get rid of all those papers you've been collecting, this also is to help protect yourself from identity theft. You want to get those papers that have the personally identifiable information on it shredded. So help protect yourself against identity theft. On June 26th, that's going to be a busy day. We also have an open house at the Crown Valley Community Center. So for those of you who have not taken a tour yet and would like to see your beautiful new community center, you can go there between 10 and 2. No reservations are needed. And I think I might join Councilmember Rains at the Ice Cream Social on June 17th, the Senior Summer Social. So thank you to Director Rivera for putting those together as we quickly knew that we were going to be reopening and being able to get people back together. So then after that, on the June 29th is a movie day, Downton Abbey, and then July 15th, the movie of the afternoon is Ford versus Ferrari. Please do make reservations for those. And just a reminder, I talked before about SB 9. Everybody's homework tonight is to go home. Check the city website about that if you haven't already learned about SB 9. See how it will impact the city, and then contact your legislators. It is set for a hearing in the Assembly next week on the 22nd. And we won't be seeing you until July 20th. So I wish everyone a very, very happy 4th of July. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. I want to keep it short to the point. I have proudly represented the city over 16 meetings. I don't want to elaborate on any of them, but I always think of the best interest of the city to advocate for what is the best for our citizens. With that, I turn it over to our city manager.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Earlier tonight during public comment, we heard the gentleman talk about the e-bike issue, and I want to let you know on July 20th, Chief Ascension is bringing a report back about that issue. We'll have some recommendations for you. Also, we heard tonight about all the wonderful events, and I want to remind everybody, including the week-long July 4th celebrations, we also have a concert that we're going to be having in Crown Valley Park. Much anticipated concert. So check out our website for more information about that. And we have more summer concerts on July 30th and August 13th. And if anybody has any questions, please check out our website or call the Parks and Recreation Department at 949-425-5100. And that concludes my report this evening.
Very good. Thank you very much. We are now adjourned at 8:55 p.m. Thank you and stay well.